Oh, hello, and welcome to the Legacy Insights podcast. And I am your host, Moving Money Mike, and this is episode 16, Financial Intelligence: Why Knowing Isn't Enough Anymore. So let's dig right on into this. Guys, this is going to be an amazing show tonight. We're going to be dropping nuggets of all types about the differences between financial literacy in financial intelligence. So here it goes. Listen, my role today is to help you become a more informed individual and entrepreneur. We're going to be covering tips, tricks, interviews, all of the things that matter in your life to get you from where you are to where you're going. My goal here is to help you become a better informed individual entrepreneur and, of course, to reach your financial goals. Simply put, we're going to provide you the insight to get your mind and your money right. So it's time to let's get smarter. All right, I got my trusty show notes here tonight, and we're going to dive right on in. Right, this is really something. This episode, I'm excited to bring it to you because the opening statement was the title is why knowing isn't enough. What's the difference between knowing what to do with your money and actually doing it? See, a lot of people will say they're financially literate, and we all know that a lot of times, un I guess by not anyone's fault, but what they say doesn't line up to what they do. Right? The words and the action don't match up. So we're going to discuss financial intelligence over financial literacy. See, because literacy, of course, is knowledge, and without intelligence, the application leads to stagnation. Right. So let's talk about that. Right. Knowledge versus without application leads to stagnation. Right. So you can have the literacy knowing about it, but the intelligence to be able to apply to your unique situation is where the stagnation takes place. And that just that slight transition from knowledge to application. So let's go into it. We're going to talk about four key mindsets that I've gotten down here on my notes, and the financial intelligence cycle. Right, I've done a lot of research in this area, and how it connects to the legacy framework is really the magic that's going to happen here tonight. Right, there's the six pillars, and that's back in episode 4. So if you didn't watch episode 4 of the Legacy Insights podcast, please go back to episode 4. Look at the legacy framework, the six pillars of a legacy. Okay, in that episode is going to break it all down to you. You know how a legacy is built in that framework, and then you can start to understand what we're talking about here today. So, what is financial intelligence? I'm just going to define it for you. Financial intelligence is the gathering and the interpretation of your financial data to create a favorable outcomes based on your unique situation. Okay, let's just talk about it. Let's dive into that definition. Is the gathering of and interpretation. So literacy is gathering and understanding the knowledge, but it's the interpretation of that knowledge of that financial data, your specifics. This is why working with a financial professional is so critical and crucial to your development and your achieving your goals. And I'm going to get a little bit into that a little later, because I don't want to give it up too soon. But it's the interpretation of your specific financial data that creates a favorable outcome based on your unique situation. So, and that's what we all want. That's what I want for you, is to have a favorable outcome economically, so that you're getting to your goals and your dreams. That's what this show is all about. So let's keep going. Literacy equals understanding versus intelligence application. We've already established that. This is where I said I didn't want to get to it before I got into it before we got to this segment of it. Is people know what to do but fail to act for a few reasons: comfort, distractions by niceties over necessities, and pride. Okay, people get comfortable with being comfortable. I know just enough. My money's sitting there. I can see it. I'm not losing anything. Well, I'm not making anything, but I'm not losing anything. You know, um, the money's under the mattress. It's there. I know where it's at, but I wish I could had more. Comfortable. Distractions of niceties over necessities. I was happily, I watch TV like everybody here in the country, right? In the rest of the world. And what is it? Retail. Everybody's vying for our dollars. I watched a Lexus commercial. It had a pretty famous African American actor showing off his acting skills, and it was so apparent to me because I'm tuned into this, right? Marketing, and I'm tuned into people trying to extract the dollars from us, as because we're a consumer based country, and I just want to share with you, the African American dollar is 1.6 trillion dollars in spending. I'm gonna have to find that note, right? That's spending. That's not acquiring assets. That's just spending money. $1.6 trillion just in the African American economic cycle, right? So when I say about the niceties over the necessities, we're doing a lot of spending of money, an enormous amount of money, but not acquiring the things that actually will bring us the wealth that we actually are seeking and working so hard for, right? So let's just touch about this. What I've experienced in my over decades plus experience as a financial professional is that individuals' knowledge gets in the way of their financial intelligence. That's where that pride comes in. I'll sit down with someone who has done their research, and I'm so happy that they've done. But what they do is they get half of the information. They don't have all of the information. And then if they do have a good portion of the information, what they won't have is how to apply it, the intelligence to apply it to their unique situation so that they get the biggest return on their investment and or their acquisition of going toward their goal. That's why it is so important that you talk with your financial professional that you're working with, or reach out to me. Go to the Legacy Insights podcast, hit that subscribe button, scan that QR code, put in your name, your email, take that financial overview, learn some things, reaffirm some things, get the information that you need that's going to get your mind and your money right, because the two work together. They work in sync, your mind and your money. Let's keep it going. So having some information is not as good as having all of the information, right? They say, oh, a half a loaf is better than no loaf. Well, yeah, in some such situations, right? But in this situation here, you need all the information. That's why this show is so important to the community. That's why the information that I'm sharing with you is so important for you to get a hold of and start your research. Talk with a financial professional. Reach out to me at michaellewisfinancialspecialist.com. Go to the website, look at the videos, send me an email, send me a DM, ask your questions. right? Put some comments in the section. Hey, Mike, what about this? I will reach out to you, right? Let's keep it going. A person can quote financial gurus, but still live paycheck to paycheck. Isn't that something? Um, that's that financial literacy. Oh, they can talk a good talk, but walking the walk is where the rubber meets the road, or the dollar meets the bank, or the dollar meets your investment, right? It's growing, right? See, because if your money's not growing, it's not doing you any good. Someone else is taking your money and making money on it. I want you to have that income. I want you to have your goals and dreams to met. I want you to have your legacy growing and handing it off to your loved ones, right? Or even while you're here enjoying the fruits of your labor. Because guess what? It's called the time value of money. If you start right now, believe me, you can enjoy the fruits of your labor and still have enough to pass it on to your siblings, and or heirs, right? It's not like it used to be back in the 60s and 70s. Today you can make money, make investments, and actually be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So let's keep it going. So they say a person who can quote financial gurus but still living paycheck to paycheck. You know, they say, you know, that a man and his money is soon departed, right? They use another term for that, but a man and his money can be soon departed. And I learned some things the other day, about business, and I'm listening to some really financial experts in this industry and business people, and they talk about, what is some of the quickest ways that you can lose your money. A man can lose his money, and a man can lose his money with the three L's, right? And the three L's are, um, liquor, leverage, and ladies, right? See, those relationships with those three L's can take you out, right? So, as a businessman, and for a businesswoman, guess what? It's the same. It's just that one of the L's becomes an M: liquor, leverage, and men, right? So we have to be careful about the environment and relations that we keep. And I'm going to talk about that in one of the next episodes coming up too, about your circle of influence, right? Because that has everything to do with legacy building, right? This show's touch on everything. So someone who earns modestly but intelligently invests and builds wealth over time. So you don't really have to have a whole lot of money to invest, like a lot of people believe that they do, right? You could start out investing, $100, $50 a month, and turn it into something. Because guess what? The time value of money in a great interest rate will help you to build that compounding interest over time, right? And then we also talk about blue chip stocks, right? And how to invest there over time, right? If you're young enough or you have children and you want to set them up for their future, some of those types of vehicles are really good, right? We're going to have some shows on that. We're going to talk about your circle of influence. We're going to talk about some stock investments, which ones are the best. That these are the types of things that you want to go out and research, right? Because I can't not tell you where to invest your money, right? But the types of vehicles that are out there you should be aware of, that are solid investments that you can partake in without straining yourself and building wealth over time, right? So those are the types of nuggets that we'll be talking about. It'll be up to you to do your research, talk with a qualified professional about those investments, right? You want to talk with a qualified tax consultant. You want to talk with a qualified financial advisor. You want to talk with a qualified a stockbroker, right? Right? Because they're not the same. The financial advisor, the stockbroker, and the tax professional, they're three different people, right? You want to make sure that you're talking to all of them because they all have their areas of expertise, and not one can advise you in another area, right? It's just simply put, right? So here we go. Let's keep it going. Getting into the cycle of financial intelligence. Really, what is it? There's four steps we're going to review on, right? So the first one is review your past. So this is the first cycle, or the first step in the cycle of the four. You're going to examine your spending habits, financial wins and losses, right? So when you make a money move, whether it's a pro or a con, it's a learning lesson. It's an experience that you need to document, because guess what? It gives you insight to where your money is working and how you handle money, your mindset with the money. Was that a good decision or was that a bad decision? These types of things, this all information that's going to move you to your goals, right? It just, as you make good money moves, it's going to take you to your goal a little bit straighter, right? A little bit quicker. When you make incorrect money moves, it's just going to hold you up. It's not going to deter you, because you're going to have a strategy. You're going to have a plan. That's what that legacy framework, those six pillars come in, right? I'm going to keep referencing this because these are the tools that you should be implementing in your strategies and in your plan, right? So you want to review the past. That's step number one. And then step number two, you want to forecast the future. What does that mean? You want to define your goals clearly and realistically, right? So I don't want you to get caught up in, like, you thinking that you got this big thing that you got to imagine, that you cannot take a step in that direction. When you forecast something, that's just your mind's eye seeing where you want to be. In financial terms, forecasting can mean numbers and charts and graphs and things like that for businesses, and even for yourself, right? If you have it, that kind of financial knowledge, and you can apply that to your life, then so be it. But for those of you who are saying, "Oh, well, Michael, I don't know how to do a financial forecast," yes, you do. It's your mind's eye into where you want to be. That's forecasting, right? Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, right? So that first step is to review your past, come up with a financial forecast of your future. Where do you want to go? Define it clearly and realistically. And then the third step is to strategize. Build actionable plans using the six pillars in this cycle of intelligence, financial intelligence, to close gaps between where you are and where you want to be. I'm going to keep this real simple for you. Review the past. Use your mind's eye to forecast your future, where you want to be. What's the goal? What's the end game, right? When you start a project, you always want to start with the end in mind. What do you want it to look like, feel like, smell like, the whole nine? What does that vision look like? And then when you work back from that vision and that forecast, you can easily lay it out by the month, by the week, by the day, in actionable plans. And that's the strategy that I'm talking about building. Because when you have that forecast, you know what you're working towards. So you have actionable plans to close the gaps. And then you want to execute and monitor. Create a monthly budget and review the process regularly. So once you have those first three, and you have that, you have the review, the forecast, and the strategies and the plans of action to move forward, you cannot move forward if you do not measure your progress, right? You can't measure. You say you can't measure what you don't monitor, right? There you go. That's what it is, right? Because it's here it says execute and monitor, so I kind of have you a little messed up. But you cannot measure what you don't monitor, right? And so as long as you're monitoring it, those measurements, you can see where you're going. You can feel it, right? Literally feel it in your bank account, in the way you walk, in your confidence, as you make these small wins, right? That's what we're talking about here. Small wins over time bring success, right? Not many times do you roll that dice and hit that big money. It's nice, but most times it's over small wins. And that's what we're talking about here. So these four steps line up perfectly with the first three pillars of the legacy framework. Let me explain. Review the past. The first step in the cycle ties to the first pillar, learn. It's foundational education. So when you foundational education is when you is your past. That means you've already experienced that. That's the foundation. You want to be able to review the past, learn from it, the first pillar, apply some some uh, uh, um some of that knowledge, right? They say hindsight is 2020. Apply some of that to your second step, forecasting the future, right? To your mind's eye, right? Which aligns with pillar number two, elevate, increasing income and assets. So when you're forecasting, you know that you've got some past that you can make some changes to and make some adjustments to. Now, guess what's going to happen? You're going to start increasing your income in your forecasting, step two of the cycle, step two of the pillar, right? The framework is increasing your assets and your income, right? You're going to start seeing those gains take place, right? You're going to see them happen because you've learned from your past. And you're not making the same. You're missing the potholes and the landmines. So you're being able to put that investment away, that extra disposal income away. You're not buying those niceties as we talk about. You're not buying those as much, and you can see the gain coming along. And then step three in the financial intelligence cycle is strategize, which lines up with the pillar number three, guard, protecting wealth with smart insurance and planning, right? So as you building a strategy to build actionable plans, that's where protecting pillar number three, guarding, comes in. You want to protect the wealth with smart insurance and planning. So what does that look like? You know, every foundation, and I'm going to talk about it as we go through this too, a little bit further, is there's a pyramid of planning and strategy. The first, the foundation of any financial plan is protection. Number three, guard, right? The pillar. You want to have insurance protection, meaning that you want to be insured enough to cover all of the assets that you've worked for, your home, your car, your family, right? If they were to lose you, how would they survive? Right? I've mentioned it before. We are the human ATMs of our lives. And if we're not covered enough to cover our families for the next 10, 15, 20 years, we're not insured by that amount. How are they going to survive? Most households are two income households now. So you must have your income insured by at least 10 times. So if you're making 50,000 a year, you need to have $500,000 in insurance. If you're making 100,000, you need $1 million in insurance, right? That's going to make sure that your family is covered for the next 10 years of your missed income, right? You need to have insurance on your home. So I forget what the policy name. It's like a mortgage insurance. So as you pay down your mortgage, the premium on that insurance comes down too, right? Because it's covering the amount of your mortgage that isn't paid off, right? So you talk with your insurance professional. I got to get some more direct, because like I said, there's so many policies and so many contracts and so many strategies out there. Right off the top of my head, I don't remember it. But those are types of guarding your assets in your livelihood that you want to make sure. You want to make sure that your kids still go to college if something were to happen, right? Come on, right? You want to still make sure if even if they don't go to college, they still have a roof over their head, right? The repo man don't come take the two cars, right, away. It's just what it is. So let's keep this thing moving, right? So the legacy framework and the six pillars align perfectly with the cycle of financial intelligence. Those four steps, right? Review, forecast, strategize, and then execute and monitor. Now, I've always talked about getting your mind and your money right. The next four mind steps for financial intelligence go like this. I'm going to help you to assess the mindset maturity with these four principles. Here we go. The first one is awareness mindset. You got to be aware of where you are and what your deficits are. What's your strength and your weaknesses? I know you heard of SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses, um, attributes, and something else. SWOT analysis, threats. Yeah, something like that. SWAT. Strengths, weaknesses, attributes, and threats, something like that. Yeah, something like that. SWOT analysis. You got to know what those what those are, right? And what's around. You got to be aware, right? So that's the basic of the conversation. Understand where your money truly goes, right? I say your money's got to have a destination. When that money comes in that into your account on payday, right? You got to know the outlay. You got to know the savings. You got to know what assets are being funded so that you can get to your goals, right? Knowledge is not judgment. It's it's data for improvement. So what does that mean? Does it mean that, like, just because I know something, I've got to be all over with it, the knowledge, right? No, it's data for improvement. It's really about how are you applying that knowledge on a regular basis. That's what it's really about. So that's the first mindset, the awareness mindset. Application mindset translate to learning into consistent action. So they say the quickest way to your goal is how fast you implement the directions that you've been given. See, a lot of people will get the information, hold on to it, reread it, reevaluate it, instead of just taking it and going for it. Just put it to action and see what it yields you. That is the quickest way to getting to your goals. And let me tell you, it's not easy because a lot of us, because of our intelligence, right, we want to make sure that we know what we're talking about and what we're doing. And sometimes I'm a victim of that myself. I want to look at it and fully understand it before I apply it. And what happens is analysis paralysis. I'm still just looking at something. I'm still going over it, and I'm still not getting in. Now, a perfect example is getting to the gym for me, right? I got workout plans. I got schedules. I got weights. I was there the other day. I'm going through this whole schedule, like, to get my physical fitness together. And guess what? I ain't been back since because I'm still looking at the sheet, right? So it applies more than just money. We're talking about legacy here, right? So a legacy is more than just money. It's how do you want to be remembered? It's how do you want to be seen? It's some of the actions that you take in your daily life. So let's keep this thing moving, right? So you got to translate learning into consistent action. So there's no analysis paralysis. Don't just read about budgeting, build one and track it weekly, right? We just touched on that, right? Is at the moment of instruction, you take action. Adaptability mindset. Can you actually take the information that you get and apply it to your unique situation? And this is again is why I say you need a financial professional like myself, my colleagues that are out there, that the ones that you're working with. And if you don't have someone that you're working with, look me up. Go to Legacy Insights podcast, hit that subscribe button, stay with the show, keep learning, right? Because that's how you get to the application mindset. Because as you start bringing in information and you start acting on that information, that's the mindset that you want to acquire, right? And I talked about adaptability mindset. This is the next one. Staying flexible with financial goals as life changes. We know, and I think I did speak to it in the last episode. Financially, what was it? Stressed out and financially um, spent was the last episode, right? Stressed out and financially spent. How? the life changes happen, right? So what happens in that last episode was we were talking about how life can come about and change on you at a moment's notice. Car repair, doctor's appointment, health issues, right? You got that cognitive load in the back there working on you, keeping you stressed out. And right, and how do you get to it? That's a great episode. If you missed that episode last week, please go back to episode number 15, stressed out and financially spent. Man, there's some great nuggets in there as well about life and dealing with life on life's terms, right? So you got to stay flexible in that adaptability mindset. Then you got to be able to pivot intentionally during inflation, job changes, and market shifts. Bam. That's what I'm talking about, being flexible, because anything can happen at any time. And if you don't have um, the the six advantages of financial independence, I talked about those too. We help families in six different ways. Savings, protection, um, asset growing. Um, what else is it? It's all missing me now, right? There's quite a few. There's six areas. I'm gonna touch on them here as we go through this here. So, and then of course, the last but not least is the accountability mindset. Hold yourself reasonable, responsible. No blames, just results. Right. So there you go. Right. No blame, just results. You know, one of my mentors told me my life is my own damn fault. Right. So if I don't like the results I keep getting or the relationships I keep ending up, whether it's business or personal, then that's on me because I keep letting either those individuals in or I keep making the same mistakes over and over again, expecting different results. And they call that insanity. I got to partner with mentors and planners or accountability groups. That's what this is right here, an accountability group. You're just starting out, you don't have a whole lot of information. That's what this show is about, helping you to get that start, helping you to start asking yourself those questions. What do I need? Where do I get the information? You can get it here at the Legacy Insights podcast. You can speak with your financial professional, get this information, go to your financial person that you're working with, that tax person, that financial institution that you're working with, and ask them some of the questions that I'm bringing about. Right, that's the reason. That's the way that you get that financial intelligence that we're talking about here. Okay, and as we keep moving, this is the pyramid that I was talking about. And I'm going to give you just kind of like almost a visualization in your mind. That first layer, the foundation, is your protection, right? That's that insurance protection. You want to cover all your assets and your liabilities in that protection area, that amount of protection that you have on yourself and your spouse and your loved ones, right? So that they're all protected. The second level of that pyramid, if you will, is savings, right? I talked about that in those six areas of where we help people with the savings, right? You got to have at least 12 months to 18 months worth of savings for all your bills. If something were to happen, boom, out of nowhere. We talk about the car. We talked about those unforeseen issues that may just pop up out of nowhere, right? That's the second level in that pyramid. Then you want to talk about and acquire growth, right? So you want to have protection, you want to have savings, and then you want to have a section or a certain amount of money that you're putting away that's going to start working for you, right? Because you know you're working for something. And what is that for? Freedom, right? Freedom isn't free. You're working towards something, so you got to have protection, savings, and growth. And you find that in the different products and services that we talked about. I talked about it in one of the episodes about retirement, Index Universal Life policy. Go back through the episodes or there on the channel. Look for the 20 advantages of an IUL and the also the 10 advantages of a fixed index annuity. These are the type two very powerful vehicles that enhance your financial portfolios so that you can take yourself from where you are to where you're going. So you got to have growth in your portfolio. And then you talk about investing, right? Like I said, there are some blue chip stocks that you could start looking at. There's some stocks out there that you're looking at that is something that I'm going to be, touching on, inside of the conversations that we're going to be having going forward, right? I'm going to have some guests on who are experts in those areas, right? So that they can give their expert opinions about what's good, what's not good, what you need to get more information on. Those are great, great. They're going to be great interviews I'm going to be having. And then, last but not least in that the fifth layer or level in that pyramid that we're speaking of today, we're talking about freedom, right? I said freedom is not free. It's gonna cost you time, energy, money, right? You cannot get to financial freedom without those three things, right? And then a layer of of action: protection, savings, growth, investing, and then finally the freedom that you've been working for. So this also aligns with the legacy framework and the period, the six pillars, right? So here it is. We talked about protection, right? And it is the first layer of and level foundation of the pyramid that goes with the guard. We talked about that in the last section. You want to have that protection. Then they have the second level, which is learn, right? Growth strategies. That's that savings. You got to have alignment. So when you're having the third level of growth, you got to be in alignment with your family and the goals, right? Because if you're not going to have growth, if your household, you're in the people around you that you're working with or in your life, if you're not in alignment with those people and in those relationships, your growth is going to be stagnant. It's going to be very bad, right? Meaning that you're going to have to pull people into their goal. You have to pull people into their future. You know, why not walk into it together? Why not work at it together as a family unit? As a matter of fact, episode one of the episodes, it takes a unity, um, um, takes a village. I believe. What is that episode? It's one of my episodes. The title, right? It's about unity. It takes a village. You go back and check that episode out as well because it talks about that alignment, and then change in you. That's the freedom mindset, right? Everything that I'm talking about here cannot happen without change in you. It's got to be in you, and I know it's in you because you're watching this show. You're taking down these notes. You're hearing what I'm saying. You're applying some of the principles and some of the strategies and the concepts, right? You're going out and you're doing your research based on the conversation that I'm having right now. That is the awesome part about this show. Me giving back freely. This is your show. This is our community. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like, drop some comments in there. Tell me what it is that you like about what you're hearing. Also, tell me what you would like to hear more about, right? Because this is your show. We could talk about real estate investment. We can talk about financial products. Actually, I'm in conversations with a gentleman now. And I don't want to mention his name because we're still working through the finer details of me working with him and him working with me, right? But I'm going to have him on the show in the real estate area about investing, home ownership, purchases. He's in the business uh, 20, 30 years, the real estate industry. I'm really looking forward to having him on the show and being a part of this awesome process that we're building here. Uh, I just can't say how excited I am about keep going and sharing with you all, right? So that change in you, right? That freedom mindset. That's what we're all here for. That's what the show is about. And then, right, each level builds on the last, right? It's like Tetris, right? And I had an old friend in previous companies that I'd worked for. He used to crack me up and he used to say it only gets gooder and gooder from here, right? And that's something else that he used to say that, and it still brings a smile to my face whenever I think about him. You know, you know. You can't skip any steps here because it creates instability. So it's gotta build on itself. It's gotta have a foundational level. It's gotta have the protection, the savings, the growth, the investment, and then get to that freedom that we're all looking for. So here we go. I'm just gonna just kind of recap a little bit, and intelligence is literacy in action. In action. There you go. Right? Intelligence is literacy in action. So you go out, you learn it, you become literate. Then you get intelligent and you apply it to your unique situation so that you can benefit from that intelligence and that literacy, right? That you're putting together because literacy is intelligence. Intelligence, financial intelligence is financial literacy. All right? There you go. So, I'm going to encourage you guys to do some really great things, and that is to audit your intelligence. Right? You got to, like I said, you got to monitor your and measure and monitor your growth. So you got to audit yourself, review where you are and where you're smart about your money, but not yet wise in execution. So what is that saying? Right? Look at where you are, see what's happening with it, be smart about your money, and where you're lacking in that financial movement, you want to get wise there, and then you want to execute. Right. So what I got for you to do is I want you to take 30 minutes this week to review your financial past. Right. Define your goals, adjust your plan. Right. You cannot move forward unless you're measuring and monitoring. I do it. I've got papers and charts and notes that what I've got to adjust because it's a lot. But you can do it. Know that you can do it. And that is the belief that you need to have, right? Um, they say if you're going to pray about it, don't worry about it. If you're going to worry about it, don't pray about it, right? So there you go, right? So I want you to take 30 minutes this week to review your financial past, define your goals, and adjust your plan. Don't just consume the knowledge, convert it into results. That's financial intelligence. Okay. So I really want you to understand that I am here for you. This show is truly, truly a home that you can build on, and it's a foundation that you can grow from, right? I really do see it happening. I'm pushing every day. I'm bringing more and more information that is relevant to what you need, to what the world needs, because I can't keep it all to myself. What am I going to do with it all? I've got to give it away. And I like to share it right here, drop it right here. So I want to thank you very much for the privilege of your time. This is Moving Money Mike, the Legacy Insights podcast. Go to the channel, hit that subscribe button, scan that QR code, get the information to get your mind and your money right. And I'm out. And I will see you in the next episode of the Legacy Insights podcast. Thank you.